It was 11:47 p.m. The rehearsal dinner was over. The laughter had settled. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. Another flood of notifications from the bridesmaid group chat I was never meant to see. At first, I didn't realize what it was. Then I saw the name, Bridesmaid Chaos ring star. I froze. Someone had accidentally added me. Maybe a mistyped name. Maybe fate being cruelly efficient. Messages kept rolling in. Laughing emojis, inside jokes, wedding gossip. Then, her message. "Don't worry," she wrote, "I'll still sneak away with my ex before the honeymoon. He deserves one last night." And the bridesmaids laughed, all of them. I read it twice, then again. The words didn't move. They didn't break apart or blur. They just stayed. My fiancée, my soon-to-be wife, planning her final act of infidelity before saying "I do." The air thinned. The room felt colder. I didn't reply. Didn't breathe much either. I just placed the phone face down on the table and listened to the quiet. Somewhere outside, a car passed by. A laugh, a siren. Life kept moving, unaware that mine had just paused, mid-beat. I stared at her photo on the nightstand, the one from our engagement shoot. Her smile soft, rehearsed, perfect. I used to love that picture. Now I just studied it like evidence. 1,000 little details replayed in my mind. Her sudden new password on her phone. The late-night bridal stress walks. The quiet way she'd say, "You trust me, right?" I had, blindly, stupidly. The words from the chat echoed again, shaping themselves into something sharp and cold inside me. He deserves one last night. Deserves. As if loyalty were a courtesy. As if I were an obligation she'd soon fulfill and forget. I didn't text her, didn't confront her. Instead, I opened my laptop and began scrolling through our shared cloud folders, the ones where she'd kept our wedding notes and travel plans. And I found it, buried deep, a folder named Music for the Road Trip. Inside were not songs, photos, screenshots, messages, him, a name I'd never wanted to see again, her ex, the one she'd once sworn was toxic. They'd been talking for months, carefully, secretly. Every line I read stripped away a layer of the life I thought I knew. By the end, there was nothing left but stillness. The next morning, I was calm, almost too calm. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving for her final dress fitting. Her lips trembled slightly. Nervous excitement, I assumed, she thought. I smiled back. Then I drove. To the hotel where her ex worked part-time. To the cafe they'd met at. To the quiet alley behind the church where she once said she'd lost track of time. Every corner whispered a truth she hadn't confessed. I wasn't looking for confrontation. I was collecting proof. At home, I printed the screenshots, the chat, the photos, even the timestamps that matched her lies. I placed them all inside a white envelope, the same kind we'd used for the wedding invitations. Then I sat, watched the hours melt away. Every tick of the clock was a rehearsal for silence, for the part where I would stand before her tomorrow and simply not show up. She'd think something happened, a flat tire, a delay. But when the truth arrived, it would not be me. It would be the envelope. At 3 a.m., I left it at her door. No note, no explanation. Just the truth, printed neatly in black and white. When she'd wake, she'd see it first thing, before makeup, before vows, before pretending. And when she opened it, the world would tilt. I imagined her expression, disbelief curdling into fear, fear dissolving into shame. By sunrise, I'd already driven 3 hours out of town. My phone vibrated again and again. Calls, messages, panic. then silence. At noon, one final message came through from her maid of honor. "She's crying. She said you ruined her life." I laughed once, quietly, because she had ruined mine. I just returned the favor, with precision. The church filled with whispers that morning, guests ready, and no groom in sight. She must have walked in expecting applause, cameras flashing, her perfect day unfolding. But instead, questions, murmurs, unease. Then someone handed her the envelope I'd left with her mother. I wasn't there to see it, but I could imagine it clearly. Her fingers shaking as she opened it, the color draining from her face, the bridesmaids' laughter dying mid-breath, the same ones who'd laughed in that chat. Now they'd all see, all know. I didn't have to shout, didn't have to humiliate her myself. The truth did it for me. Somewhere between her first tear and the first phone call she made to me that day, I found peace. I didn't answer, not once. By nightfall, I sat alone in a roadside motel. The suit I was meant to wear hung on the chair beside me, perfectly pressed, never worn. I stared at it for a long time, at what it represented. A future built on illusion, a promise made to a liar. Outside, the rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier. I thought about her face when she read that message, how she must have realized, too late, that silence can scream louder than anger. I didn't hate her, not anymore. Hate needs emotion, and she had taken all of mine. What remained was clarity, cold, sharp, final. Tomorrow, the world would wake and gossip about the missing groom, the ruined wedding, the scandal. Let them. I didn't vanish. I just refused to play my part in her performance. As I turned off the light, my last thought was simple and absolute. Some betrayals don't deserve confrontation, only absence.